Hey friends, Rebecca of Carnivore Wellness. I want to share a little situation that cropped up today that humbled me and also reminded me of the challenges of going carnivore when you are coming from a standard American diet. Let me set the stage for you. I was at a women's Bible study. It was only my second week. One of the ladies at the end, we were going around sharing prayer requests, and she's got some health issues that she's dealing with. She's got some nerve pain, some tingling in a hand, and she mentioned a lot of joint aches. So my little ears perked up. And I'm thinking in my head, oh, carnivore. Okay, I know. I love to go around and think carnivore would cure it. Carnivore would cure it. We can't always, speak up like that in our real world. And honestly, I typically don't. I very much keep my meat-based lifestyle, close to the chest. I don't speak about it unless asked. But I was in this Bible study and I really felt like the Holy Spirit was guiding me to say something to her about this. So I just, said, hey, and mentioned her name. I'd love to chat with you after, and just left it at that. And, I wasn't sure how she'd receive it, but we got a chance after the Bible study wrapped up for me to talk to her. And I just said, hey, I heard you talking about your health issues, and, you mentioned that you have this joint pain. That's something that I used to really struggle with. I'm really into the outdoors. I love to hike, but my hiking got me to a point where my joints hurt so bad, my knees especially. It felt like somebody was taking a little ice pick or a knife and prying it under my kneecap, and I just really struggle with that joint pain, that and lower back pain. And as I adopted an anti-inflammatory diet, I really noticed a difference. And so she let me speak for a minute about, how I gave up alcohol, and then I found myself eating too much sugar, and then I kicked the sugar habit, and I went into a ketogenic diet, and that gave me a lot of benefits, really calmed some brain inflammation, helped regulate my hormones, and it took away the joint pain. And I mentioned, and I took it even farther, and now I'm, just largely meat-based. And she said, oh, well, and so I asked her, I said, are you open to, making some diet and lifestyle changes? Is that something that you're interested in? And I actually asked her that before I gave her my little spiel, my little carnivore testimony. And she told me, yes, she's trying to eat more whole foods. She's trying to nix all of the processed foods that fill pantries around America everywhere. We know those kind of snacks that really can take over. And she said, so I'm getting rid of those things, and I'm just eating a lot of, whole foods. And she mentioned a lot of fruits and vegetables and smoothies and celery and carrots. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, that's a lot of plants. And I personally know that the plants, for me at least, was part of the problem. When I first started keto, and I had been doing for keto 4 or 5 months, I just was bloated all the time. And it wasn't until I eliminated the plants that I had a reduction in the bloating and the digestive issues, and the joint pain went away. I even had tooth sensitivity that went away. Like, it really helped to eliminate the plants. But as I was gauging the conversation, I was realizing, okay, she's not ready. She's not ready. And so I just tried to reinforce, good for you, choosing whole foods. That's awesome. Way to go. I kind of had to walk it back, take a step back, and just realize she's not ready to adopt a ketogenic diet, let alone a meat-based diet. So I just kind of ended the conversation by saying, I just felt like I needed to come and plant that seed. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of great things for you right now. And, that's awesome. Please continue taking good care of yourself. You're doing a great job. But this may just not be the right time for you. I just felt like I needed to come plant that little seed. So we left it at that. But in the course of that conversation, she was a little interested in the meat-based lifestyle, and she had a couple questions, and really they were not so much questions as forms of resistance. And so those were, let me see if I can get these right. One, she said, I don't really like the taste of meat. I'm the kind, and this is kind of twofold with the second thing. She said, so I don't really like the taste of meat. When I eat a lot of meat, it makes me feel kind of, ugh. Now, we as carnivores, we know that ugh that people are talking about is probably satiety. Like, it's really satiating to eat meat. And also we know, okay, and this plays into her second concern was, I really can't handle a lot of fat. Whenever I get a steak, I cut off every little bit of fat. Meanwhile, inside I'm cringing, saying, no, that's the best part. That's where all the flavor and goodness is. But she just made the point that she doesn't like the fat, and she can't tolerate a lot of fat. And that is so universal for so many people who've been eating a standard American diet, even a healthy version, I'm putting that in quotes, healthy version, because our gallbladders don't hold and our livers don't produce enough bile, and so we don't have that bile release that we need that breaks down the proteins and the fats that come from a meat heavy meal. So I totally understand where she's coming from, that sluggish feeling, that like, food sitting in the stomach feeling that can occur when you adopt a meat-based lifestyle. When you're making that transition, it takes a while for the body to upregulate a lot of those processes and functions, and that's to be expected. And that's where things like, maybe some ox bile or hydrochloric acid tablets, things like that can help digestive enzymes, and also just eating smaller meals, smaller portions to help along the way. So that was another barrier. So one, she didn't like the, eating a whole bunch of meat, and kind of part two of that is a lot of fat sitting in the stomach is hard to process, and also the fear around fat. As she's trying to work towards health, she's thinking about fruits and vegetables, and I understand where that messaging comes from. We've all heard it. So that was twofold. And then the third thing, and I think this is a really human thing, especially as women, we're caretakers, providers, we coordinate meals and such for the household. She said, well, how do you do it with your family? Because, I can barely find healthy things for my family to eat now. I'm responsible for my husband and my son. And I just can't imagine making meals that are in alignment with even a ketogenic diet that they would also be willing to eat. So I get it. That's also so hard. And I mean, I wish I could say I have all these great answers, but by and large, for me, it looks like I cook bacon every morning, and I'll cook sausages up for the kids, and some, eggs when I can get them to eat eggs. They go in starts and stops with their ability to enjoy eggs. And meals, I cook chicken, or I'll cook burger patties, and yeah, if they want to throw it on a bun, great, but if not, then that's fine too. They're just little ways that I've kind of worked it into my life, and truthfully, I don't cook full meals for my family. I don't. I mean, my kids are young, so for better or for worse, they kind of just snack. They eat when they're hungry, and then they'll be done for a while, and then they'll come get something else, and so I'll offer them something else. But I'm not sitting down with plated meals with everybody. With my husband's work schedule, he's not off work till 7:30, close to 8 o'clock at night. That's not going to work for our household to sit down and eat a plated meal every night at the table, as ideal as that would be. So yeah, I get it. It's messy when you're trying to incorporate carnivore into a family lifestyle. And so her concerns were so valid. And, her point of reference too, her frame of reference of coming from, what we've been told messaging wise is healthy for us versus what would an anti-inflammatory diet really look like, where you're getting most of your energy from fat, where you're limiting and eliminating really all the processed grains, sugars, starches from your diet, and really choosing whole foods, especially meat-based fatty foods. I understand the hesitancies, and so I quickly found myself humbled, thinking, oh, Holy Spirit's asking me to go and talk to this lady and plant this seed of an anti-inflammatory diet. Clearly she wasn't ready for it. Seeds planted, great, maybe it'll get watered and grow into something, maybe not. But what I realized on the drive home as I was kind of replaying the situation in my head was I wasn't meant to bring this to her for her benefit. I was meant to bring that line of conversation of considering a ketogenic or a meat-based diet, an anti-inflammatory diet. I was called to bring that to her for myself, for me to be humbled by the understanding that not everyone's ready, and that's okay. And also that there are still some very basic barriers to entry into this diet and lifestyle that now, as a carnivore of 3.5 years, I take for granted. I take for granted that I don't eat plated meals with my family, and that, I'm having to kind of in some ways be a short order chef for my kids or my husband when he gets home from work, make him up a little meal that comprises things other than just meat. We've made concessions in our lives, and our social dynamic of family doesn't evolve around mealtime. It's centered around other things, activities, outdoor adventures and things like that. So it was for me to be humbled. It wasn't for her benefit that I went and spoke to her. Honestly, I'm so thankful to her even being willing to host this conversation with me, because I got a lot of benefit out of it in realizing, number one, there's still a lot of barriers to entry. And we can't forget as carnivores that these factors of, I don't like the taste of, or I don't like the feeling of eating a lot of meat. Fears around fat, because fat has been demonized. Like, we can't forget that that is still just so ingrained into so many people. And then also, how do you make it work in a social context when food is so central to everyone's social dynamic? So I just really appreciated that I had that opportunity to be reminded of the basics, especially the basics of the barriers to entry, and to then, in the future, approach people with a much more humble heart. And, sometimes the delivery's a little rough, right? Like, when we try and step outside of our comfort zone, like I said, I don't normally step out and speak to people about, hey, you might want to consider this, keto, carnivore. I don't normally do that. So it's clumsy, right? My delivery was clumsy. I got to just accept that. But it's the practice, it's the continual practice of stepping outside that comfort zone, gauging the situation, trying to read the room, read somebody's receptivity to that possibly being something they'd be open to. I'll get better at that with time. It's discernment. And how interesting that also comes into play with my faith. Okay, I love to circle it back to everything I'm learning with regards to my walk with the Lord. One, you gotta be humble. I feel like that's been really shown to me over the last several weeks. It's about being humble. You've got to humble yourself, right? Before you can come before the Lord, and especially before you can be in service of the Lord. And it's good to listen to those inner nudgings that, hey, go talk to someone, or, hold space for someone in this way. That's all good. But you got to make sure you're doing it with a humble heart. And then also that there are barriers to entry. Not everyone is ready to hear about the good news. They're just not. And that's okay. Sometimes it's more important to put energy and effort into building a relationship with them, into just holding space for people to be as they are, and then just live by example. So in some ways, this does kind of want to drive me back into the carnivore closet of, okay, I don't need to go out there sharing the carnivore, good word. That really it's in living by example that we really have our power. But also there are times when we're meant to speak up, and I'm trying to find that balance of when is it right to speak up versus when is it not. Today, that inner nudging from Holy Spirit to speak up to this lady, that was in service of me. I gotta be very honest. Like, maybe it will serve her, but honestly, she probably walked away feeling a little like, ugh, maybe I wish, why does she want to talk to me about diet? That's not her place. So I just appreciate that, hopefully she has some grace for me, and it's okay that maybe I stepped out of turn a little bit, because I definitely received a life lesson today that was beneficial for me. So anyways, I'll wrap it up. That's what I got for you. Guys, stay humble, but also recognize that there are a lot of barriers to entry into carnivore, and that it can feel insurmountable. And that's okay. You got to take it step by step. Right now, this lady is working on eating whole foods. That is step number 1, and she's crushing it. So, kudos. That's the way it goes. You got to take baby steps to get to where you want to go. And, 3.5 years carnivore, it's great. And I feel wonderful. I've got a lot of benefits out of it. But I think because I've gotten so many benefits, and because I've done it so long, I have become a little too far removed from what it's like to be on the other side, still in standard American diet land. So today was that opportunity for me to kind of get a glimpse back on what it's like living on that side of the fence. That's what I wanted to share. All right. I love you guys. I will see you in the next video. Toodaloo.